Hey, sixth grade Bible. Good job on your test last week. We finished the chapter on Jesus's death, and we are starting the new chapter on Jesus's resurrection, which is good news for me because that chapter is kind of hard for me to teach as we talk about all the hard things that Jesus had to go through for us. Because remember, the purpose of it was to fulfill this rescue plan that God and Jesus had set up at the very beginning. And in Jesus's death, that resurrection plan was complete. So thankfully, we get to do this next chapter on his resurrection because the story, although it ends sad in our last chapter where Jesus dies on the cross, we have the good news in this next chapter. So as we start his resurrection, this first lesson is called the empty tomb, and we're focusing mainly on the soldiers in this one. So remember, Jesus was laid in a tomb of a man named Joseph of Arimathea. He had an empty tomb that he used to put Jesus's body in, and they wrapped his body, him and Nicodemus, in white cloths, and they lay him in the tomb. And then Pilate had soldiers guarding the tomb. They rolled this giant stone in front of it. They sealed the tomb like with this, in movies where like a king has this ring and he can dip it in this like some type of wet material stuff and then stick it on a paper and then you can see the king's seal. It was kind of like that where they had seals on the tomb around the stone. So if anyone tried to mess with it, you would be able to tell because those seals would be broken. Okay. Guards are standing there in front of it because Pilate and so was afraid that Jesus's disciples were going to come and try and steal his body because they had heard Jesus talking that he was going to rise from the dead. And they were afraid that the disciples were going to come and steal the body to make it look like he had risen from the dead. So they had guards standing in front. On Sunday morning, this big earthquake happens and an angel appears at the tomb. And the soldiers are freaked out. Okay, they haven't seen angels before and they act like dead men, the Bible says. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. And as that happens, Jesus leaves the tomb. He doesn't come through this door. And it says that his linen cloths, instead of having them like unwrapped, which had been wrapped around his body, unwrapped so he could rise from the dead, it's like they just had collapsed and his body had just come out of the cloths. It was this miracle. And the women, we're going to talk more about them in the upcoming stories, but the women come to the tomb on Sunday because they didn't get to properly wrap his body or so because of the Sabbath day on Saturday. So they're coming and they find that the stone has been rolled away and Jesus's body is not there. And they're going to go and run and tell the disciples, but we're going to hear more about the women and the disciples in our upcoming stories. The soldiers go and run and tell their people in charge, the Pharisees, and they say, you'll never guess what happened. Angels appeared, an earthquake happened, Jesus's body is gone, and they're freaking out. They're afraid that they're going to get in trouble because this body that they were supposed to be guarding, a dead body, is disappeared. And so the soldiers were paid money to lie and say that the disciples had come and stolen the body so that people would not get word that Jesus had risen from the dead. And they would just think that the disciples had come in, stolen the body to make it look like that. It's kind of a crazy story if you think about it. So what you're going to do is this worksheet on this side. It gives you different passages in Matthew that you're going to read a few of the verses to answer these questions about who is guarding the tomb. What excuse did Pilate give for that? We kind of talked about that because they're afraid that the disciples are going to come and steal the body. And then on the back side, we are going to have you practice that memory verse one more time because later on this week, we're going to take a memory verse test on John 14, 6 and 7. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That verse. So you're going to write it on the back and say that to somebody at home. I know we haven't really practiced it in class much, so we will do that in class on Monday and Tuesday. So you're going to fill out this worksheet before our class on Thursday and Friday. And then on Thursday and Friday, we're going to talk more about the women coming to the tomb and some of the disciples who come to the tomb. I hope you guys have a wonderful start to your week. We'll see you guys later. Oh yeah, the code word. See ya.